Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jaynky to the Max, a podcast where we talk about awesome creators and the even cooler, well, no, not even cooler creations, but the cool creations that they make. Today on the show from the wild plains of Texas, we have Sewell. That he is going to kick off our series on entrepreneurship, on taking your idea from simply a side project to a full-blown business. With me in this show, in the virtual studio, is my fantastic co-host Glavin.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the show.
So, I gotta ask, have you finished your desk yet?
Yes, I have, actually. I'm sitting at it right now.
Wow, that is really cool. So how long did that take you to make? I know this is not entrepreneurship, but Oswald's been working on this PC hybrid desk for a while, and it's really cool.
So back in early November of 2019, I had purchased a 3.5-inch thick piece of spalted pecan that was about 4 feet long, and over the course of 5.5 months or so, I routed out the bottom of it, did a lot of cable management and fitting all of my computer components into a very small form factor onto a piece of plywood, and finally just this last month was able to get it attached, get the wiring run correctly, put enough fans in there so I don't cook it, and it's a beautiful desk. Really happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love unique form factor desks. Anyways, so tell us about some of the cool ventures, side hustles you've been working on over the years.
Well, probably my first and biggest one would be in November. I believe it was November 16th of 2014. We founded a company called Three Dudes Printing because there happened to be three of us. My roommate, who I still live with at this time, had approached me, and it was when 3D printers were first really getting big. And he's like, "Hey, man, we should start a business." I was like, "All right, man." You know, he has a wild idea every week. I'm like, what are we gonna do as business? He's like, "We'll get a 3D printer and we'll make stuff with it and we'll sell." I'm like, "What are we gonna make with a 3D printer?" He goes, "Man, anything, whatever we want." And I'm like, "Well, sure." I was dumb enough to say yes. And I remember telling him though, I was like, "Well, I can't run the books. I don't trust you to run the books. We need someone to do it." And we had a friend of ours who had gone to school with, who we still kept in touch with, who was going for an accounting major to be a CPA. Like, we'll get Sean. And so managed to rope him in too. And even though he lives in Dallas, he pretty much took care of a lot of our online stuff and all of our budget means. And pretty much anytime we had a tax question, we would just call him up and just, jokingly, "Hey, 3 Dudes Printing, we're looking for the Dallas branch." He'd be like, "Yeah, what's up?" It was a really fun venture. We started out with one printer and we weren't really sure what to make, but all of us were very much so into video games and video game culture. My roommate and I had gone to a couple of different conventions. We'd gone to RTX a couple times. We'd seen cosplayers and we thought it was really cool and came up with the idea of, hey, let's sell cosplay equipment. Because with 3D printing, not a lot of people were doing it yet in 2014. Like everyone was still using foam and things like that. There really wasn't a lot of 3D printing in the cosplay world. And so we figured, people aren't going to want to buy kits. They're going to want to buy finished products. And the first big thing that happened was Fallout 4 came out. And when Fallout 4 dropped, they had the special edition, which had the notoriously bad canvas bags that were actually plastic. And they had the Pip-Boys that you could actually wear on your arm. And they just were selling out of units instantly as they were going. So we managed to find a model of them online. It was about a 45-piece model. And we downloaded that, printed it out, sanded it, glued it, bonded it together, sanded it again, primed it again, sanded it again. And we got it to a certain fidelity where we're like, wow, this looks nice. We don't want to have to do this every time. So we bought some silicone, and we learned all about vacuum sealing and all these new techniques that we had to take on. And we injection molded, essentially. Not injection mold. We resin cast all of these so that way we could produce them in larger quantities because we knew, like, we're going to have a lot of these. It's way too many parts. And of the first batch, I think we did 14 of them, and we sold them, I think, for $350 each. And we sold all of them.
Wow.
Yeah, and we learned everything there from how to paint professionally. We bought like a professional airbrush gun. I had a friend of mine who paints cars come over and showed me how to use it. We had to learn we built our own vacuum pump. We bought a vacuum pump and then really just got a big cast iron pot, a 1/2-inch thick sheet of acrylic, watched a couple of YouTube videos, and just made it happen because you have to have a vacuum pump in order to draw all the bubbles out of the silicone and the resin because they're very viscous. And just, man, step after step of just learning and making mistakes and spending more money. But we got to figure it out. And that was our first our big win of like, wow, we made money. You know, we've paid for the printer, we paid for the materials. We're at zero. We went from red to just at the black.
Nice.
That was a really exciting time.
Getting to the broke point in a business is seriously underrated.
Yeah.
It felt amazing. There was a couple really hard nights there. I know it was leading up to Christmas that we had a huge influx of orders, and the problem with those Pip-Boys is while we were making money on them technically, the man hours we were putting into them, it was next to nothing. So on paper we were making money, but that's because we weren't paying ourselves.
Right.
I can remember a couple nights where I remember one night distinctly, we had some orders that had to go out. I mean, like, they were behind. We had overpromised and underdelivered on the dates just for various slowdown issues. And all the while this is all going on, we all have normal day jobs. We're all going to college. I actually had other jobs at the time. I was both a cook in a mom and pop restaurant, and I had a guy who I would go and check on his goats frequently for him. That was, 30, 40 minutes out of the day every day. And so we all had all these other obligations that, just really helped compound all the issues. There was one morning I remember at 6 a.m., my roommate, comes into the garage. He's leaving to go to his job in the morning. He just looks at me and goes, "Did you sleep?" And I just look at him, racks of Pip-Boys in front of me, just trying to get them all to dry in time so that way I can box them up 2 hours from then and send them out to people. I'm just shaking my head, just head down on the workbench. Just like, I slept. I think. I don't remember. So, just those early struggles.
Wow. That's intense.
Yeah. Something we'd realized, though, that took a big turn with that is, so we had one printer, and that lasted us all the way until about August of 2015. And in early August, we had an awesome opportunity. We had a friend who, his parents had a place down in Dominican Republic, that they were staying at for a couple months, and they said, "Hey, bring your friends down. We'll rent some motorbikes. We'll just go around the island." And best 2 weeks I've ever had. Super fun time. But right before we left for that, we were just running the numbers, and we had no market research. We were doing everything ourselves, from fixing the printers to our own market research, having to figure out how to sell on an online platform, how to figure out like what your community is interested in and what they're willing to pay for.
Right.
So we're learning all these things, as we go. We didn't learn these things in school. We didn't learn them in college. It was all just stuff we kind of threw spaghetti at the wall and see what stuck. So right before we had left, I said, "Hey, I really think," because there was a YouTuber, Bill Duran with Punished Props, who's a huge inspiration for us and a really great resource. His videos is where we learned to do a lot of our silicone molding. We looked at kits as an opportunity. I said, "Hey man," I approached our other two business partners and I was like, "Hey guys, I really think there's an opportunity here. I think there's a whole community of people that we're not reaching out to who want a high quality kit product so they can finish it the way they want to. And that way the level of fidelity that it comes up to is however many man hours they choose to put in, which takes a lot of stress off of us."
Yeah.
So about a week or two before we left on that trip, we put up 15 products that were all kits, and then went out of the country. So we had Wi-Fi sometimes, and I remember about 5 days in, looking at my phone and seeing you have 27 new orders, and just staring, and then going and finding my roommate who had gone on the trip with me, and being like, dude. And then by the end of the night, I just kept checking my phone, and at one point he had to be like, "Hey man, you're on vacation right now." But it was so hard for me because,
Right.
This is the first major success. It's like, vacation. Who needs vacation? Let's go home. Let's make some money. Let's do this. And so by the time we got back, we looked at the lead time it would take for some of those products. We had a 2-week lead time before. But like the latest orders we were getting were going to take something like a month and a half to get out the door just because of the time it takes for a print. And to account for to account for bad quality prints that you have to throw out. So that's when we bought our second printer, was 1 year, almost to the day. And from there, it just exploded wildly out of control. Even when we hit the point where we had 15 printers, we were still had about a 2 to 3 week lead time on any order.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That, like, congrats, dude. That is seriously. So, I take it you're able to become cash flow positive at some point?
Oh, yes, absolutely. That was probably about early 2016, late 2017. Most of the money that we were making was essentially getting dumped right back into printers and filament. I was actually looking at the numbers just before this. We were ordering something like 15 to 20 rolls a week.
Oh, wow.
I remember even when we were scaling both with scaling the printers and scaling with filament, there were multiple times where we had bought all of this stock on Amazon. Like, we couldn't buy another model of a printer that we wanted because they just didn't have it for 4 more months. And so I remember at one point, because it said in stock, we placed the order for 4 printers at one time. And then it was like, oh yeah, we can get you 1, and the other 3 are going to take 3 months to get to you. Like, no, scrap the whole order. And then we started calling around, and we found this dude in California on eBay who had 5 of them, and it was cheaper than buying 4 of them off Amazon. So we were like, well, let's just go ahead and buy 5, I guess. And 4 days later, a pallet showed up at our front door, and we had to disassemble the printers out in the front yard to get it out of the pallet and the boxes just to fit it through the front door.
Oh.
Yeah, it was an exciting time. We recycled a lot of Hatchbox boxes. I used to keep all the manuals. I probably had a stack about 2 feet tall of just the manuals.
Wow.
Oh, wow. So you went from like almost 0, and you had to scale up without any like additional. Wow. Yeah, that is
Without any additional funding. Yeah, we took all the money and just kept funneling it back into the company.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an exciting and wild time. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, we learned a lot of lessons. I think one of the big takeaways is, you have to be a man of many, many hats if you are going out on a venture, even if it's by yourself or if it's with 2 other people. I had almost no knowledge of CNC-based machines or really small electronics. I had a vague idea. I'd played with LEDs and something before. We had, right around Christmas time in 2017, I would come home I would go to school all day. I would then go to my job at night where I'd work at a restaurant, and then I would come home at about 10:30, and then I would check on prints. And sometimes even between finishing school, I would drive past my job, go home, just so I could take care of the printers for 30 minutes, and then get back to work just in time for my shift. Just because we had to constantly keep them running, because every minute a printer wasn't running was money lost, because we were so far behind on orders. And we kind of told ourselves, like, hey, we're not going to buy more than 15 printers. It's getting a little silly. And it just, in that craziness, one day I came home and my roommate told me, he's like, yeah, man, 2 of the printers, they're doing this weird thing and I don't know what to do. So I turned them off. I'm like, you turned them off? How long have they been off? Like, time. Time is so important. And, wound up taking a look at them, and they both suffered a cable failure. Oh, 9 more of our printers from the same brand had that exact same cable failure within about a 5-day period. And this was right around the time that I had finals finishing up, and we had orders going out for Christmas. Like, November was our busiest month, easily. So it was just this crazy time where, once again, 2 a.m., I'm sitting up in my living room, with a soldering iron in my hand, making my own wiring harnesses to replace the ones that had just, for whatever reason, failed, just pooped out.
Oh man.
Oh,
Hey, at least that's good being able to be in control of having the skills to be in control of your own maintenance. That way you can, when you got a problem, you can easily just, boom, take care of it right there and then, versus having to wait for, sending it, RMAing it back, waiting for, repairs to get done.
There was no time for that. Instantly, I grabbed some wires and electrical tape, and I just electrical taped the wires to it just to make sure because I wasn't sure if the printer was bad, or if the motor was bad, or the wiring was bad, the motherboard was bad. I'm like, man, if it's not these cables, we're screwed, because I can't replace anything else that fast. And thankfully, it was just the cables, but I just wound up going through and building my own wiring harnesses for 9 of them failed. Got to the point of failing, but I built 11 harnesses for the 11. There was brand Quidai Tech or QD Tech. They're a Flash Forge knockoff, but they were. I mean, I looked at the specs; they were the identical printer, and they were $100 cheaper per unit, so we went with them.
That is so janky. I love it.
That's awesome.
Definitely, we had to wear a lot of hats: accounting, marketing, understanding shipping, how to get the shipping rates, postal.
Yeah.
I mean, we called Hatchbox at one point to try and figure out, like, hey, we're buying these constantly on Amazon for $20 a roll. How many units can we buy? Just buy a pallet from Hatchbox and it'd be cheaper.
Right.
So it's all about finding ways to automate what you're doing, because time is your most precious resource when you're doing anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what happened? So it was thriving, and
it was thriving. It was doing really well. So we were selling lots of. We were selling lots of cosplay-based things. So guns from video games, pendants, anything, necklaces, belt buckles, chains, all these really popular IPs. And how we would do it, because none of us had a background in CAD, is we just went to Thingiverse, and there were people who had 3D modeled these things, and they put them up with attribution licenses. And there were plenty of other people out there who were doing the same thing we were without placing the attribution in their list like you're supposed to. But most of those people were just 1 or 2 people who didn't really seem to know what they were doing. We would look at their reviews, like seeing how other stores are doing compared to us. They didn't have as many sales. Their reviews were talking about poor quality of the products, extremely long lead times. But we were making these cosplay items, which, despite being made by an independent person on the internet, are still the IP of those original companies. And so in February of 2018, we received, over the course of a week, 6 cease and desist orders.
Oh no.
And unfortunately, with Etsy as a platform, which we were using at the time because it gave buyers a certain confidence in our products, has a limit of 3 cease and desist orders per year or so. And so within about a 5-day period, we lost our shop.
Oh, goodness.
Which, in fairness, we were playing with fire.
Yeah, for sure.
And we'd seen, because what all it was is there was some marketing service that was doing this on behalf of Blizzard. And one of those products, I believe it was our Destiny hand cannons that got us. We had like 9 or 10 different Destiny hand cannons, and they only pinged us for like 4 of them, which is weird. But yeah, that forced us to shut our shop down, and we talked about a couple different things of setting up a second shop again, which it's against Etsy TOS, but we could look around and see tons of other people doing it. We discussed, possibly shifting markets, but we'd have to learn an entirely new market again. Yeah. And in the end, I think a lot of us were just kind of tired of the late nights. We all had jobs, college, and at the time too, a big thing was in the early days of 3D printing, there wasn't a lot of information out there like there is now. There are a huge amount of forums, subreddits, things like that. And the information that people did have, they were gatekeeping pretty well. So, everything we learned to get our products to the quality that they were took a lot of trial and error, which also led to our lead times. They still weren't perfect, the settings that we used. We had to print rafts with every single thing that we made. And so for every every part that we pulled off the printer, my roommate and I would have to take box cutter blades, and we'd wear gloves and these little holders that we had 3D printed for the box cutter blades, and we would trim off the really harsh edges because our customers had told us we didn't like them, but we had to have rafts because our settings were so bad we couldn't get good adherence to the build plan. So we were just getting kind of tired of spending 30 hours a week on top of college and school and normal work, spending an additional 30 hours a week on, spending an entire weekend just cleaning prints, getting them in boxes, box mail, make sure they get the correct label for the box, and then someone has to go and drop them off at the post office. So we just kind of let it die off and finish its thing.
That's too bad. Yeah, I was wondering about that when you were telling about making all this cool. I was like, oh, that's really cool. How did he get the IP for that?
We didn't. We always used things that other people had created. None of us had a background in CAD.
Right.
Which I think is a testament to some of the shops that I made later on, is that it's okay if you don't know how to make. There's an opportunity out there for you to still find a way to turn it into money.
Yep.
As an example of that, I happened to, just passing thought one day while I was driving in the car was, I was thinking about a Vincent van Gogh painting I'd seen. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I wonder who's selling that. And then thinking back to my days at 3 Dudes Printing, I was like, wow, I wonder who has the IP for Vincent van Gogh. I'm like, well, I guess there is no IP. I'm like, well, I guess anyone could sell his painting then. Reproduction. So I did a bit of research into it and found that that was, for the most part, true.
Interesting.
So after that, I decided I'm going to start another Etsy shop, and I took a deep dive on the National Archives website, and based on a bunch of marketing research I had done, all of this things that I had learned to do from my first venture, 3 Dudes Printing, I was able to find who are the most popular artists. I said, I'm going to start a shop. I'm going to have 100 paintings in it because that's what I feel like is a good number, and I'll see how that does. And if it does well, I'll put more time and effort into it, and if it doesn't, I'll move on to the next thing. And so I did some market research, and I went to the National Archives and a couple other online websites where I could find really high quality, high resolution images, so that way I could, take them all the way from an 8x10 to a 12x18 if I needed to. And I downloaded them all into folders, organized them, and then created my listings. And I actually happened to, I don't remember how, I think it was when I made business cards for 3 Dudes Printing. There at my college, there was a print shop, and they would print a 12x18 for 78 cents, which is an awesome deal. So I wound up working with them to where all I have to do now is I email them the poster and I email them the shipping label, and they take care of everything from printing it, putting it in, and shipping it for me. And
wow.
78 cents.
Yeah. Wow. So that's your side hustle you're working on now?
Correct.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so
wow.
That's one of my fun ones. The big takeaways that I got from 3 Dudes Printing was automation is key.
Yep.
Like, it's, I don't know if you're familiar with the book. It's okay. It has its flaws, but the 4-hour work week. But
there's
a principle from it that I really enjoy, which is when you work for yourself, however fast you work depends on how much you made an hour. The faster you get it done, the more you made in that hour.
Sure.
That's something that I've really taken forward with me, is to automate everything that I can. For the first few years I did the posters, I had a mixture of just thinking it would be kind of awkward and weird. I didn't ask them if they could do that for me. I would, every time I'd get a poster order, I would maybe once, sometimes twice a week when I was still going to school, I would go over there and take the posters myself and pick up the posters from them, stick them in tubes. I would buy tubes for $2.78 at the UPS store, go pick up the posters from them up the street, put them in the tubes, then drive to USPS because the shipping's cheaper than UPS, and I would use the UPS tubes there. And at one point I realized that's a really dumb, bad way of doing this, and I need to find a better way. And so now I just bulk order shipping tubes on eBay, send them directly to the print shop, and they take care of everything for me. I almost never actually see my product anymore.
Nice.
Wow. That is so cool.
Yeah, definitely getting to that level of automation made me learn a lot about what's important and how to manage my time better.
So, if you had to, narrow things down, 3 important, takeaways you'd give to the audience who are in this stage, what would you say?
Find a way to automate everything you can, whether it's emails, your postage, your product creation. If you can find a way to make that take less time, but still ensuring it's quality, do it. You owe it to yourself. Your time is your most precious resource. The other big one I would say is probably you're only one person. It's understandable that you see all these things about entrepreneurs and how they can do everything and you wear all these hats, but the fact of the matter is that's not sustainable, and it's not sustainable over a long timeline. You will need help eventually, and whether that's bringing in partners or paying someone, or simply scaling back your expectations, or maybe even your other hobbies you might have to give up in order to pursue those things. It's important to have a realistic understanding of what you are capable of as just one person.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Curious, so like after you got done with doing the 3D printing, what did you do with all these printers?
They became dust collectors for about a year. We were some of us were just ready to be done with the 3D printing thing, and we were busy doing stuff, and I was still a student at the time, and so I was kind of hard up for cash, so I was just working every opportunity I could get, and I didn't really have time to sell them. And so we wound up finally one day we sat down had a conversation about it of, hey, can we start selling these things? And my roommate didn't really want to sell them, and my friend in Dallas couldn't, just didn't have the means to. Since I was there, I was like, all right, well, I'll sell them, and we'll split it a third, and third. But when we're done, I get to keep one printer. They're like, okay. So I was like, sweet. So started taking pictures, and I put them out on Craigslist. And nice. I think I put one or two on eBay. I sold one to a friend in Ohio. But mostly Craigslist, and I've met a lot of really cool and interesting people actually by doing that. I've met a ton of people who are into manufacturing, fabrication, architects, some people have CNC plasma tables and things like that, and they, just wanted a 3D printer as one of those many tools in their environment.
All right, what's the craziest Craigslist story? I love Craigslist stories.
Trying to think craziest.
Farthest out. My favorite.
I mean, I have some that aren't related to the printers.
Oh, go for it.
My roommate had a drone, a DJI fan, one of the early ones, and he flew it a couple times, but just wound up never using it again. And I think he got a little too scared to fly it, or he crashed, and it cost him a lot more money. And so at one point, I was like, hey, dude, what are we doing with this drone? It's taking space in the office. He's like, hey, if you sell it, I'll give you 10%. And I was like, okay, I can take 10% of, nothing. And so I put it up there and just had this dude call me out of nowhere one day. Had a couple people email me. A lot of them were scammers. His guy called me out of nowhere one day. He goes, hey, I want to buy your drone. I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. I can meet you. He's like, can you meet today? I'm like, maybe, I guess. Yeah, where? He's like, I was like, well, maybe the police department? Because that seemed like a safe place, because you seem kind of sketchy already. He goes, yeah. And so I roll up to the police department, and he comes up about 20 minutes later. And I'm talking to him. He goes, yeah, I do photography for famous, for football teams and all that. And I do a lot of aerial drone photography, and I got a shoot coming up here in an hour. But, my crazy ex-wife, she'll be my ex-wife next week. She, smashed my drone this morning with a baseball bat. And so, I don't have a drone right now. And the whole time he's talking to me about his ex-wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife, I happen to look over his shoulder, and I see, this young pretty girl in his passenger seat. And I'm just like, oh, soon-to-be ex-wife, huh? Man, not wasting any time. And he's sitting there, and he's talking to me. He's like, yeah, she's so crazy. Hey, man, do you know anyone who would want to buy, a sex swing? And I'm sorry? And he goes, it hangs from the ceiling. I have one now, and I don't have any use for it, and I kind of don't want it anymore. And I was like, nah, man, I don't want it either.
No.
Trade it for you and take $50 off the drone. I'm like, nah, man, full price on the drone. And all I could think was, man, it wasn't a very big truck. And I'm like, where are you hiding the sex swing guy?
Alright, that is sorry.
Sold the drone at full price. Skipped on the sex swing.
Good call.
That's funny. Oh boy. So, do you have any, so what was your favorite, most exhilarating experience being a kind of co-founder?
I'd probably have to say, and I posted an image of this earlier in the chat, there was a point when we had all 15 3D printers set up. We wound up just realizing we didn't have enough space. There was a time in the office here we built a very crummy bench that held 3 on top, and then we had 2 nightstands holding the other 2. So we had 5 printers at one point at that level of a scale. And that was the time that we started buying 3, 4, 5 printers at a time. Was right after that, and we realized, man, we need a bigger place to hold all this. Went to Walmart and bought some shelving, and my roommate's like, man, where are we going to put this? And we're 2 bachelors living in a whole house by ourselves. So I was like, well, we never used the living room, so I guess we'll put them up in there. And so we erected a 4 stands with 4 printers a stand, 4, 8, 12, yeah, and lined those up all around the living room. And we put back braces on them because we were actually worried about those gantries moving around so much that it would make the whole shelf start to rock.
Oh, no.
And we just stacked them, 2 on the top shelf, 2 on the middle shelf, and the bottom was just full of filament or tools, things like that we were using with the printers. And we had a poker table in the middle that I used as a staging area to like, oh, this printer's broke, cool, unplug it real quick, move it over here, tear it apart, put it back together. And in those early days, like I said, we had really poor settings, so we had lots of nozzle clogs because we just weren't running the right settings. And I was probably fixing 2 to 5 printers a day every single day.
Oh,
like I would come home from work and before taking a shower, like still covered in grease, the first thing I would do is go listen to the printers and listen for ones that are clicking or making a certain noise or like checking the prints and seeing that it's not extruding. And just turn it off, take it apart, clean it, put it back together. I mean, I used to get like blisters on the inside of my fingers from twisting Allen keys so often because you would have to take like 6 of them off for every printer. And then you gotta put them back on.
Wow.
Yeah, that helped you get really good at it really fast.
I imagine.
Wow. So, do you have any like 3D printer buying advice to the people who are out there looking for 3D printers?
To be honest, I've kind of been out of the game for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The way if I was going to go look for a new printer now, which I might be in the market here in the next 6 months to a year, we'll see. Might want to upgrade from these. They are 5 years old or so. Is I would probably just go to, like the subreddit for 3D printing, on reddit.com.
Mm-hmm.
And, just really look at some of the things that people are getting really high quality prints out of. Go to the comments, maybe even shoot those people a message. Hey man, what are you using? What do you got? How are you able to do this? Can you send me your source file? What are you using for your slicing software? Can you send me a copy of it? Because whatever you're doing is working. So just taking the little extra step of, if you really want to skip the, hard learning phase, you have to just reach out to others and learn from their mistakes.
Yeah. That's smart. Yeah, what I love about your story is that it really goes to show that, you don't have to, like, founder isn't a degree you get from college, it's more like a mindset. Like, you know what, I know this is gonna be tough and it's gonna be hard, but I'm gonna figure it out. I don't need a, no, that was a really great story.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been a heck of a ride. Learned a lot, printed a lot, fixed a lot, broke a lot, broke quite a few things.
Break everything.
Yeah,
wow.
It was a fantastic experience, and despite it coming to a very sudden end, I wouldn't trade any part of it. I learned so much from, I did all the things that you're not supposed to. I moved in after, I graduated high school. I stayed at home for a year or two while I was going to school, and then I moved in with one of my best friends, which you're not supposed to do. And about a year after that, I started a company with 2 of my best friends, which you're not supposed to do. And, we had our disagreements about various things or the way something should be done, but in the end, still, I wouldn't trade any of those moments. We all learned so much about, what we're capable of and what we could do.
That is so inspiring.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's something I'll always get to take for, be 6 years old and be like, man, I remember I started a 3D printing company like before desktop 3D printers were really getting popular, when they were still like absurdly prohibitive.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw a 3D printer. I think it was in an Office Depot. I don't know if they have them where you're at. But I walked in there and I was like, what are these objects because they were advertising their 3D printing services. Like, how did they make this? And then I saw like the 3D printer and I was confused at how that thing can make this tiny plastic object. And when I found it, my mind blew. Like, this is the coolest stuff. Yeah.
I had that, I had that experience a lot, when I'd go to family reunions every year during Christmas. They'd be like, so you do what again with plastic? And I'd always tell them, like, imagine a hot glue gun. And you're going to build a popsicle stick house, but without the popsicle sticks. So you're going to make layer by layer the walls like you're pouring concrete for the hot glue. And they're like, I just don't get it. And I'd show them like a time-lapse video on YouTube, and they'd be like, wow, it's so fast. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's
Oh boy. Dealing with tech illiterate family is such a pain. Oh.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And, you know, from that, it once again pushed me to learn new things, to where I would have like my cousins who'd be like, hey, could you like make grips for my pistol, you know, with like stipling and whatever. I'm like, yeah, you know, I'd go and find like a model online, and I would just vaguely resize it. Cause I could do some things in CAD, and then, you know, I might put like their name on it or a logo that they like.
Right. That's so Texas.
Man.
Oh, so do you have like Etsy links or anything you want to plug?
No, not terribly. The things I would recommend is, if you're a maker out there and you want to learn how to start building things and making stuff for yourself, just a couple of resources I'd highly recommend is, if you don't know where to start and you just want some projects, check out Instructables.com. It's fantastic. Man, I was thinking about the other day, if we wouldn't have had Google, there's no way we could have run our company. We were on Google for every single question and every step of every project we ever did. So just never underestimate it as a resource. If you're not getting the answers that you need, it's probably not the keywords that you're giving it that are the ones that it wants. As far as YouTubers, Bill Duran, once again, Punished Props. If you are into prop making, even for yourself, or you just want really great tutorials on finishing materials, he does everything from foam to Warbler to finishing 3D prints to make them look really nice. Bill Duran with Punished Props. And another huge inspiration that, I mean, all the time I spent fixing those printers, I had YouTube open on my phone. I was either watching him or I was watching Adam Savage's Tested.
Oh, yes.
Great resource where we learned even more. I mean, we were watching their mold making videos while making our molds for those original Pip Boys, just going, okay, cool, we're doing this step. And they just told us that this is the most important step and don't mess it up. Here goes nothing.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah. That sounds like really great resources. If you not announcements, a few things. First off, we are starting a new, kind of like mini series. We're calling it the Jaynky Exchange. It's on Wednesdays, and essentially think TED Talks, but, a little bit shorter, about 10 to 15 minutes. And, I think this week we have, last week's podcast guest, Ben Cartwright from the Flame Trench and Citadel Space, and like all the other projects he's working on. He's going to be talking about small sats. So we'll stream it live like normal, and hopefully throw up a video on YouTube. Check out which brings me to the next thing. Check out our YouTube channel. It's small and we're just getting started, but we have all these podcasts on there, and we'll hopefully have some more content coming up soon. So thanks for being on the show, Asul. Glad you could be here. I think you're one of the longest time members that is on the podcast.
Oh.
Other than Brett. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It's been really awesome to watch this community grow and see it become the fantastic resource it is today.
Glad you stuck around. Okay, I always love your feedback, your input, watching you work on your little projects.
And it just really wouldn't inspiring. Be the same without you.
Yes. All right. Well. All right. No matter where you are, what project you're working on, remember to keep it janky to the max.
Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in to this episode of To The Max. If you liked it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and even join the Discord server in the description as we stream the podcast live every single weekend over there. Anyway, make sure to stay janky.